I am honored to be here at the Wiki Workshop 2025 to present our work entitled Exploring Biomedical Wikidata Inconsistencies with Language Models and Data Mining in a Data Pipeline. This work is supported by the Wikimedia Research Fund and Wikimedia Switzerland. So as you know, large language models are the new hype in artificial intelligence. Many LLM-based chatbots have appeared during the last 2 years, ChatGPT, Gemini, and so on. And these LLM can automate and solve multiple problems such as task automation and information seeking. This makes them very useful for the Wikimedia community. However, there are many challenges related to using large language models, including the high costs of API requests, the timeout limits associated with a number of the possible API requests, the problems related to prompt engineering, and the programming issues related to handling many settings and API keys. The solution here is to use small language models that have a size less than 10 gigabytes on local machines like servers, like personal computers, etc. In fact, the good news is that these small language models are available as GGUF files on Hugging Face. These models can be fine-tuned and compressed to be adapted for various practical applications. This makes these small language models a game changer for the Wikimedia community. So now we'll just do a brief experiment to show how these small language models can be useful for the Wikimedia community. In fact, what we have done is that we have a large database of Wikidata relations to be added and to be removed. This database has been curated using information retrieval methods. You can actually access it through this QR code. And what we have done with this thing is that we have processed it by actually asking Llama 3.21 billion hyperparameters to go through every relation 6 times and give a judgment about its accuracy. Then we actually get the rate of true and see based on that quotient what are the relations to be kept and the relations to be removed. Then we used 3.5 minutes to further filter the relations. Actually, we use something called the token probability of true to do that. Finally, after going through these two small language models, we use ChatGPT 4.0 for a final check, and we use an incomplete review by ourselves as medical practitioners for some uncertain cases. But actually, that expert review was not consistent enough because we could not find volunteers to do that. So why this LLM-based sampling is better than randomization? Actually, if you see this graph here from a paper that is under peer review now, you see that even if we distill the small language model, we can see that there is a slight predominance of true answers for higher values of true token probability. This means that when we choose a result, for example 0.7 here, actually we can get a dataset, a sample of the relations that is predominantly, even slightly, represented by the answers that have an expected value as true. So based on what we have done, actually we got 2,989 sample of relations to be added and 467 relations to be removed. Let's move on and see what are the gaps that we identified based on that filtering process. So actually what we have found is that there is a mechanism or composition modeling issues. For example, no relation linking DNA patch to oxidative stress in reactive oxygen species in Wikidata. For example, there is no relation featuring the use of hydroxylapeptides in orthopedic implants. There's also a lack of therapeutic association relationship. We have a set list of treatments, but no link between them. For example, for hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, there is a gene therapy that is applied to the transplant prior to the transplantation process. So there is an association, but there is no representation of that for several treatments. Also, diabetes actually used to not have a relationship to glucose tolerance test and determining diagnostic problem. But what we found out is that during the process of this work, actually someone has solved that issue and added glucose tolerance test, which actually proves the usefulness of what we have done as a work. Concerning the inconsistencies, we have found that there are some specialty misclassifications, like the misclassification of root caries to gastroenterology instead of dental specialty, for example, dentistry. There are some hierarchy errors, for example, arteriosclerosis obliterans is said to be a subclass of coronary artery disease rather than its proper parent peripheral arterial disease. And there are some anatomical misplacements like the Chiasanur forest disease that is linked to the lung as anatomical location, even though it is a viral hemorrhagic fever that affects the central nervous system rather than the respiratory tract. Beyond that, there are some taxonomy ambiguities. For example, there are some hierarchy conflations. For example, catalog that is not related to collection, two different entities. Actually, they are related using subclass of property. There is a subclassification misplacement. For example, a syndrome that includes a particular disease actually is said to be a subclass of that disease, which is actually not true. There is also the category oversimplification when some actually disease is just made as a subclass of disease instead of, for example, setting it as a subclass of lung disease, etc. So main point here, the main morale here is that hybrid AI human pipeline balances scalability and accuracy. Small LLMs can be effective for active sampling, GPT-4o for complex semantics, and expert curation is critical for ambiguous and clinically relevant cases. The conclusion is that improved Wikidata biomedical accuracy benefits research and clinical tools. The future for this work, the future direction is that we aim to integrate language model usage with crowdsourced editing in Wikidata. And we believe that we can extend the pipeline actually to verify biomedical ontologies and datasets prior to mass uploaded their Wikidata, which actually consists a new validation layer for the data that we add related to biomedical knowledge in Wikidata.